Roland Barrera is not here yet. Barbara Canales, not here. Paulette Guajardo, not here. Oh, he is? Okay.
Roland's here.
Oh, Roland's here? Great, okay. Let's see, Gil Hernandez. He's here.
Here.
Michael Hunter.
Here.
Susan Hutchison. I don't hear her. Okay. John Martinez.
Here.
Ben Molina.
Present.
Mike Pusley. James Sedgwick. Greg Smith.
Here.
Okay, Chairman Ledman, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to item C, public comments. Ms. Huerta, do we have any written comments?
No, sir. No written and also no call-ins either.
Okay. Move to section D, minutes. January
Second.
26, 2021. And regular meeting and March 30th, 2021, special meeting. Been moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion passes. Item E, financial report, no action required. TIRZ 3 financial report as February 28th, 2021.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Heather Hurlbert, Director of Finance. Nice to be able to provide y'all with information 2 days in a row. So we're going to go over the financial report today. Next slide, please. Okay, I think you need to go back one slide. I think we went, there we go. So we are presenting the financial statements for the period ending February 28th, 2021. We began the fiscal year with a fund balance of $5.2 million. We have collected revenues of almost $2 million per year. Since this is primarily funded through property taxes, that number will stay about it'll increase a little bit, but it'll stay about the same for the rest of the fiscal year. We have expenditures year to date of $479,000. That's primarily due to the contract that we paid to DMD to manage the TIRZ along with any incentives that have been paid out year to date. That leaves us with an ending fund balance of $6.7 million. We have commitments outstanding over the next several years of $4.5 million, leaving us a balance available for commitments of almost $2.2 million. Next slide, please. So this is our cash flow or estimated cash flow over the next 5 years. We have kept our revenue stagnant, anticipated what our current and future incentives are, included our admin, and given the board an idea of what our balance available for commitments would be at the end of each fiscal year. Next slide, please. So reviewing what the commitments are that we have outstanding, this is a listing of our project-specific commitments. These are the commitments that are paid out as the property taxes are paid, and their amounts, roughly equal to a percentage of what is actually paid by these businesses for property taxes. Next slide, please. Then we have our Chaparral Street Grant Program, and we do have 2 outstanding commitments that we anticipate that we will be paying out this fiscal year. Next slide, please. We have our Downtown Living Initiative. This is for the 600 building, and we anticipate that that will not be starting to be paid out until fiscal year 23. Next slide, please. We have our new tenant finish out, and we do have several, including a couple of new ones that were added on over the last couple of months. Next slide, please. The Streetscape and Safety Improvement Program, again, we anticipate these being paid out within this fiscal year. And that does conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? Thank you so much, Heather.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great day. Moving on to item F, executive session. The board will go into executive session on items 3 and 4 per Texas Government Code Section 551.071 and 551.072 087. We will return shortly.
1001 North Water Street LLC in the amount not to exceed $580,000 for improvements to the property located at 1001 North Water under the Downtown Living Initiative Program, contingent upon resolution of a parking agreement to be brought back to the TIRZ board for review and approval.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Any discussion? All those, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any noes? Motion passes. Motion to approve on item 4.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion authorizing a downtown development reimbursement agreement with Bayside Solutions Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $24,036 for improvements to the property located at 1001 Second Street under the Streetscape and Safety Improvement Program.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion's approved. Moving to agenda items and G. Item 5 has been withdrawn by staff. Is that correct, Ms. Huerta?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we're going to move to item 6. Motion to approve amendment number 1 to the Downtown Development Reimbursement Agreement for Agnes Water LLC, which provides an 8-month extension to the developer must complete improvements on or before March 31st, 2022. Staff, do we have any?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman, board members. Alyssa Barretta Mason, Executive Director of the Downtown Management District. This item is a proposed extension for a project we are calling South Chaparral Square. It is at 402 South Chaparral Street. If you recall, this rendering proposed an overhaul of a property that had been vacant. We really did not see a lot of opportunity for this property, but somebody did and picked it up. And fortunately, we have already had some activity move in. Victory Building team has relocated to this site. So again, for a refresher, here's the rendering. Next slide. Here's the work that has already occurred. So you can see there has been significant progress made from October 2020. They've massively overhauled the front of the building adjacent to Chaparral Street. So there has been progress on this site. Next slide. But they're actually, they've modified the project a little bit, and they are proposing to add a second story on top of what is currently rooftop parking. So instead of being rooftop parking, they're going to look to activate this space. It will be developed, I believe, as storage. There's a lot of people who are living in downtown apartments. Sometimes they move here, they need a space to keep their things, and so this will be a good, I think, amenity for kind of a neighborhood amenity as we try to develop that aspect of our downtown. But in adding this, we want to give them a little bit more time because the work will impact the way that the street looks that they are renovating. So again, that cross street, they have facade improvements proposed, sidewalk installation proposed, but they'll need to redesign this component to accommodate the next story. So for that, we are recommending an extension of their agreement. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, board?
What is this the same group that did the front part of this property? Or
Half of the same group. It was a well, actually, no. So the building is owned by a partnership.
Okay.
One of the partners is new. He bought out one of the old partners.
Okay.
And the Nueces Brewing Group is a tenant of the property owners.
Okay.
So,
But the property ownership is the same as the Nueces Brewing.
yes, sir. They own
They
the
own-
site where Nueces Brewing is, but one of the partners has changed since Nueces Brewing was developed.
I got you. Okay. Well, this is great. I mean, that was a blighted building forever, so I'm glad to see this going forward.
Any other questions? Open for motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. to approve item 6. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion approved. Item 7, motion approving amendment number 2 to the Downtown Development Reimbursement Agreement with People Street Project LLC, one building for the property located at 541 North Chaparral Street, which increases the total incentive by an amount not to exceed $40,000 for the total incentive, not to exceed $430,000, and provide a 16th month extension that the developer must complete improvements on or before December 31st, 2022. Alyssa?
Yes, Chairman. This item is a request for an amendment to the existing agreement with People Street Project for a property that was previously owned by the Corpus Christi Housing and Finance Corporation that is being proposed for redevelopment. We have the developer here with us in the audience to ask any questions. Thank you, Mr. Hoover, for taking on this site. This project has faced a lot of hurdles through the changing environment during COVID-19, with capital markets kind of freezing for a minute. But we're very happy to report that this project is continuing to move forward. They've secured all the historic tax credit components that Councilman Fusley was mentioning earlier, and have secured the financing and are ready to move forward to construction. However, during the bidding process, the construction costs for this project basically doubled. And so in order to keep this project moving forward and to provide that level of support for the developer, we are recommending an incentive addition, an enhancement in the form of a rebate upon submittal of the permit fees, so that we can keep this project moving forward. We thought this was an elegant solution. The developer had requested a permit fee waiver, but we don't exactly have that figured out from a council policy standpoint, so we recommended this alternative, which essentially accomplishes the same thing, utilizing our TIRZ tool. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, board? Mr. Smith? Hold on, Mr. Smith has a question.
Thank you. So what exactly is the timelines on this? What progress has been completed to date, and where are you right now?
Yes, sir. I can answer that. So the roof has been completely stabilized, rebuilt. Again, the historic tax credits are a very involved, lengthy process, and so all of that has been secured. His financing has been secured, and he'll be looking to begin in June with the construction. So that's why this building permit request is before you today.
Come on up, sir, please. Just introduce yourself.
My name is Bill Hoover. I live at 517 Delmar. We spent about $500,000 so far. We expect to start in 60 days. And really, we got everything lined up. It's just a matter of getting all our ducks in a row. It's going to be a great deal. I'm really excited about it.
We're excited also.
It's been like launching the space shuttle. It's been so complicated.
So, Bill, in 60 days, you'll have that, I guess, that old plywood that's coming down, OSB.
We'll start the process. I think the first part is, first you got to get all the utilities connected again. Then you've got to finish all the demolition and all the asbestos abatement and lead abatement and stuff like that. So, it's looking good.
Yeah.
We had our meeting and finalized our construction contract yesterday.
So you've got, like I say, you've got all your ducks in a row now, and
I think so. You never know. It's so complicated. You push on one thing, something else changes.
Okay.
But I think it's going to be okay.
thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, Mr. Hoover, I just want to tell you how much we do believe in what you're doing, and this building is going to be amazing. And I know you're working with the perfect partner here with some of these challenges that come about just as a developer, and we understand that, but we want you to know that we're going to continue to work hand in hand with you, because this is a game changer, and downtown is extremely important to us here.
Yes, it is.
I did New Aces Law 10 years ago.
Right.
I finished it 10 years ago. And I've been definitely getting that feeling.
Good.
So thank you very
Well,
much.
no, we're
I
your
really
partners.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you for believing in us in downtown Corpus Christi.
I believe in downtown Corpus Christi.
And keep believing in it.
Well,
We've got more for you to believe in.
We have more buildings if you're interested, sir. Plenty more. Once you finish this one, okay?
My plate's full. I got them all lined up.
Thank you so much, Bill. Appreciate it. Any other questions, board? Open for motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second? Been moved and second to accept item number 7 on the agenda. All those in favor, please say by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we move to presentation items. Number 8, downtown design guidelines.
Yes, sir. Chairman, board members, Alyssa Bodetta Mason, do I have to do that every time? No? Okay. All right, so the next item we have in front of you is our downtown design guidelines. This was an item that was requested by Councilman Pusley at our last meeting, so we thought it would be a good opportunity to come back to the board and report and provide the 3 areas that we currently have policy written for development in the downtown area. And then we'll be proposing our path forward on figuring out how we unravel all of this and come with a really good, clear development plan. I know we have Dan here with us in the audience as well, as this is really a planning activity. And as I mentioned, we'll be adding the planning capacity to our organization here on May 3rd. So we're really excited to kind of get to tackling this. So thanks, Councilman, for requesting it. Next slide. So there are 3 areas that we currently have policy written for development in our downtown area. First is our TIRZ number 3 incentive guidelines. Next is the downtown area development plan development guidelines for TIRZ 3 and connecting corridors. And finally, we have streetscape zone guidelines in the Unified Development Code. So we'll touch on all of those and then go over next steps. Next slide. So our incentive guidelines, we developed, I believe in 2019. We may have drafted them first in 2018, but we got a lot of feedback and direction through the downtown area development plan about how development should look in a downtown area. Again, without these guidelines, we basically prescribe very suburban development. A lot of the ways that we require development to occur in other areas of the city have kind of undermined the way that downtowns develop. And so we have to have a set of instructions that create the avenue for people to develop in a more urban way. So things that we have in our incentive guidelines, and the full report is in your packet. I don't expect everyone to read this slide, but we do have the actual document in your packet. But we talk about a 0-foot setback, making sure the ground floor is active, making sure that there are canopies, signage, parking being shielded, so not visible from the street, making sure sidewalks are in place, and also that they are ADA accessible and wide enough to create that pedestrian experience. Talking about street trees, 1 tree per 25 feet of building frontage, having it be a shade tree versus a palm tree. I know palm trees are like our aesthetic, but when we're talking about creating a good pedestrian experience, we really need shade trees in order to accomplish that. Making sure that there's lighting, making sure there's not an extensive area of blank walls, trying to hide utilities and put them underground whenever possible, as well as shielding them so we don't have a bunch of utility, service spaces outside adjacent to the sidewalk. So that is what is in our requirements for well-designed urban developments if a project is seeking TIRZ 3 incentives. The board also maintains the ability to waive those requirements. That was something that was a priority whenever we first proposed these. But again, these are not mandatory. These are triggered when somebody wants to enter into a TIRZ agreement or is seeking incentives. Next slide. The next area, there is a policy, I don't believe, this is not an adopted policy. This is a policy that was drafted as part of our master planning initiative back when the downtown area development plan was drafted. The intention here was to promote high quality new development with walkable, attractive mixed use environments. Again, the focus was walkability and human scale. It was not adopted as an ordinance. This proposal created 3 distinct types of streets: a primary walking street, a flexible access street, and a gateway street or a boulevard. And it also prescribed what treatment should be on what street, as you can see here in the map. So the primary walking street is dark purple, the flexible access street is the light pink, and then the gateway street or boulevard is that orange treatment. Next slide. So going into a little bit more detail, the goal of the primary walking street would be a priority location for retail, other active ground floor uses, with a safe and inviting walkable environment. Vehicular access and parking should be discouraged. So I think that that's kind of one of those components that we haven't necessarily delved into yet, figuring out how to actually restrict that type of development. What we've been doing is really trying to kind of hide it or shield it, but this would kind of be a bold way to move forward with that policy. Some streets recommended for that are Chaparral from Kinney to Hirsch, so the whole thing, Leopard from Staples to Upper Broadway, Shoreline from Park to Hirsch, again, Park is to the south, Hirsch is in the C District, and then Star, Peoples, Schatzel, and Lawrence. So those east-west streets. You can see what that treatment would look like, just very dense retail frontage, awnings, shops, storefronts, not parking lots. Next slide. Next was the flexible access street. So this would be a desirable location for occupied commercial and or residential buildings, feature a regular occurrence of windows and doors with flexibility to include some vehicular access for parking or service. So you can see here what that might look like. It might be interspersed with some surface parking lots. The streets would be most of the east-west streets downtown, Chaparral from Kinney to Park, so the very southern portion of Chaparral, Water Street from Resaca to Kinney, so the whole thing, Mesquite, the whole thing, and Tonkawa from Port to Padre, and that is essentially where 37 is. So the C District portion of Tonkawa and the southern portion of Tonkawa. So that was the flexible access street. And next, we have the Gateway Street or Boulevard. Recommended for New Aubrey, that's what the plan was calling the space where the Harbor Bridge would go away, and then Agnes and Laredo. This would be a desirable location for occupied commercial and or residential buildings, but the real goal here would be prominent landscaping and vehicular and plantings. So just very high landscaped streets was the idea for the Gateway Street or Boulevard. Next slide. And then finally, in the Unified Development Code, we created an avenue, I think back in 2011, to give individual property owners the ability to put things in the right-of-way. Previously, in order to put anything in the right-of-way, it required a use privilege agreement that had to come all the way to City Council. This ordinance created the ability to administer this, be able to put street furniture out, awnings, things along those lines. Previously, it required an inordinate amount of work to give someone permission to do that. So the things specified here in the streetscape zone include setbacks, sidewalks, the street furniture, and a landscaping zone, awnings. There are dimensions for the awnings, which was actually the real, I think, point of Councilman Pusley's request. It gives specifications to windows, sidewalks, displays and equipment, and a street tree planting requirement. Next slide. And this is what it said about awnings. It just said that they shall be provided when a non-residential building is located along the first floor. It then states that a use privilege agreement would be required, and then it gives some prescriptions to the size of the awning. Next slide. So our next steps, we would have a goal to centralize this policy. We will be conducting a best practice assessment. Again, I mentioned the planner that we have hired. He actually just completed and was just working on a project related to urban design code in Los Angeles. So we're really excited to have somebody join our team that was just part of the development of that policy, because they'll have some really great best practices, I think, that they've just thoroughly researched. We will then make a recommendation on whether we should make these optional or mandatory. If it's optional, it won't be regulatory, but if it's mandatory, it's going to require a significantly larger amount of stakeholder input, involvement, and just heavy lifting. So we'll report back to the board with that, hopefully during the summertime. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, thank you. When you talk about having mandatory type things, I believe 4 years ago there was some legislation that kind of prevented some of this from happening, specifically building materials and stuff like that. And the reason I recall this because it was a TML presentation on some of the things that were taken away. And I think this mainly stems from like cities like Sugar Land and some cities that required everything to be a certain type of brick, that kind of thing. Maybe we can get some information on that. Or as your process of doing that, just make sure we're not in violation of any of those state laws that have been put in place 4 years ago. Also, on placing things onto the sidewalk, we just recently removed a business from Bayfront because he was on the sidewalk. Are we going in a different direction there?
Well, this is a sidewalk adjacent to a property owned by the business. So if somebody has an operating business and wants to put furniture out, we didn't have the ability to give that to them before 2011. So this created without coming to the council. So I think it's an apples and oranges situation.
Okay, so in order to give him permission to be on the sidewalk, it'll have to come to the council. You're asking for like pre-approval.
No, sir. So so if somebody owns a building and they want to put street furniture out in front of the building.
So you're asking for pre-approval for us to pre-approve that onto the
No, sir.
sidewalk?
This is an adopted ordinance that was adopted in 2011, and so
Okay.
I was just reporting on what is already on the books.
Okay, so it only applies to people that own property that's in front of the sidewalk that they're going on.
Yes, and in what is a designated streetscape zone. So there's also a specific geographic space in the city where it's allowed, and that is our downtown area.
Okay, and so what do you need from us with that?
Nothing at this time, sir. We will be coming back with an assessment of all of these in the summer.
Okay, are there limitations with regard to that? I mean, I'm not familiar with the ordinance. I'll have to go back and look at it, but what are the limitations?
It is in the packet, so the streetscape portion of the Unified Development Code is in the packet.
Okay.
And again, it's optional. So it's if somebody wants to do this, this is the pathway for them to do it. The option didn't occur before the ordinance existed. So I recall when I was an intern, ARIA wanted to place street furniture outside, and we couldn't figure out how to do it. Seems like a simple enough thing, but we didn't have the written code in place to allow it. So this allowed it, but doesn't have the prescriptive design requirements that may be best practice related to what an awning looks like.
Okay, I understand what you're trying to get to. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Pusley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, Board, I just wanted to bring up, Alyssa and I have been having a lot of discussions about this, and, when we first formed the downtown TIRZ, one of the main goals was to try to improve, not only bring businesses and rehab buildings, but to bring better aesthetics to downtown Corpus Christi. I mean, you can have concrete and brick, and that's one facade, or you can have the kind of things that Alyssa has presented to us today. And the reason the conversation came up for me is there's a very large project that the TIRZ group here approved when I was on the Commissioner's Court. And when they first presented it's a very large project with a very visible frontage in our downtown area. And when it was first brought to us, we didn't like it because it was so plain. So we sent it back and asked for these aesthetic improvements. And so the developer agreed to do that. And then midstream of the project or somewhere in the project, and I was no longer a part of this board, they came back and asked the board to forgive those things, and the board capitulated. And I just think we've got to be really careful about doing that. We have, when we ask for these things to be done to improve the aesthetics of downtown, we need to stick to our guns. So I lean more toward mean, there's many cities who have revitalized their downtown areas, who have put these kind of regulations in and made them mandatory to do the very thing we're trying to do. To go along with that, I've had a discussion with Alyssa, and I have not, I told her I was going to do this, and I haven't had time to do it. But Peter, we need to encourage our code enforcement to peruse the downtown area. We've got some commercial properties that are not being well taken care of. They haven't mowed the weeds. They haven't taken down the dead palm trees. I mean, we need to be enforcing our regulations on that. So I think this is a very good step forward, Alyssa, and as we go forward, we can, refine this. But this board has to stand strong on what we envision for downtown Corpus Christi. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pusley. Any other questions? No. Let's move to item 9, downtown perception study.
Okay, board members, our final presentation for this meeting will be the results of the 2021 Downtown Perception Survey. Next slide. We will go over the background of the survey, the 2021 results and benchmarks, discuss new programs, refresh on some highlights, and then talk about next steps. Next slide. So this survey was actually launched for the first time in 2015 with the goal of understanding the downtown customer and the non-user, how downtown is utilized among patrons, test programming, and new initiatives. And then we are able to benchmark the results year over year because we've done it in 2015, 2017, 2019, and now 2021. 250 surveys are completed in both Nueces and San Pat counties. The goal here is to reflect the Corpus Christi population, so they do a cross-segment and make sure that we meet quotas related to zip code, age, and income segments. The margin of error is about 6%, and then it is compared to the 2019 Texas survey and the 2010 national survey. Next slide. So here are some benchmarks on our demographics. You can see that the downtown user is younger and more affluent than the downtown non-user. Downtown users are actually typically younger families with children and those in upper income segments. So the downtown user has an average age of 41.1 years with an average income of $70,000 a year, whereas the non-user has an average age of 51.6 years with an average income of $46,400. So I think that you see downtown as a place frequented by those who have discretionary income, who seek it for entertainment options, and are a little bit younger, more of a young professional crowd. Next slide. 87% of residents visited downtown in the last 6 months, which is pretty tremendous considering we're in the middle of a pandemic. We were very concerned about our activity downtown, but we were able to really hold the line. We didn't have a lot of businesses closed in our downtown area, which was very unlike other downtowns across the country. The number of visits for the downtown user was 28.2, which is more than double the national average. So when somebody is a patron of downtown, they utilize it frequently. The primary reason for visit, this was open-ended, many said dining, utilizing the seawall. We could see that unprompted, attending special events, bars or nightclubs went down, but working or having a meeting. And this is not people who work downtown daily. This is people who work in other parts of the community but come downtown for a meeting or something related to work. So that was up. Next slide. When we prompted them, you could see that there was a increase in the number who come downtown for dining for any reason. That is down from the previous year, but again, we are in the midst of a pandemic. Utilization of the seawall stayed steady. Utilizing cultural assets decreased, as did live music and bars or nightclubs, which is understandable. Next slide. Talking about the money spent and the time spent while downtown. They spend on average $71 and about 2 hours, 72% drive to get to downtown. People still feel that parking is affordable, but we saw an interesting change in preferences for the type of parking. So the preference for street parking went down to 49% from 61 in 2019, while the preference for garage parking went up to 34% from 12% in 2019. So I thought that was an interesting change. We thought that was an interesting change in those statistics. People still feel that downtown is convenient, and we had a massive increase, I'd say, in those who felt downtown was clean. So we went up from 2019 47% to 60% in 2021. That is the highest that we have resulted in clean, so we're really excited about that. I think it shows that our clean team is effective and a good, strong presence out downtown. Safety also went up about 9% from 47 to 56. We are ahead of national benchmarks, but still behind other Texas cities, so we still have more work to do on being clean and safe. Next slide.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yes, ma'am.
So being clean and safe. So how many on our clean team?
8.
We have 8.
Yes, ma'am.
And what's the, I don't know, the amount of, our actual TIRZ boundary encompasses?
Gosh, I know that the Marina Arts District encompasses 40 blocks, and so that is their primary focus. Through the TIRZ agreement, they will do kind of spot responses and troubleshoot in the broader TIRZ district. So we don't have them sweeping the sidewalks, all the way down to Morgan, which is where the TIRZ boundary ends. But if there are problems, for instance, that Second Baptist Church, we used to put in a lot of code reports and things along those lines. We are able to respond through the TIRZ contract.
Okay. But Peter, our code is completely, code enforcement is completely separate, right? They
Yes, that's
go,
correct.
we don't contract or contact you, and then your
No.
people go?
Yeah, the city's code compliance manages the entire city limits, including
Okay.
downtown.
Okay.
Right. And in response to Councilman Busley, we'll do a sweep downtown, Councilman.
Right.
I'll have code compliance do a targeted sweep,
Right.
probably starting tomorrow or the next day in all of downtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And I've
so,
worked with, I've worked with Alyssa too to highlight certain properties together. We've
Right.
got some of them cleaned up,
Yeah.
right? Alyssa's done a good job, so, yeah.
right. And Alyssa, you feel, 40's, I imagine it sounds like a great number, but is it a good balance for what you're handling, what you're taking care of?
That's a great question, Mayor. We'll do an assessment of other downtown districts. Fortunately, the company that provides our services block by block is actually the service provider for all the other downtowns too.
Wonderful.
So San Antonio, Austin,
Well,
Dallas, everybody.
Would
New
you
Orleans.
do that? Because
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think it's very important that we understand and recognize, same with code enforcement, when we get to the budget, we'll be talking about that. What, is it balanced? Do we have enough, what do you call them? Clean team members, for what we're trying to do and achieve? That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Please come back with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Same thing with the safety. Do we have officers patrolling on foot, bike, a vehicle? What do we have in the downtown area, Peter?
For code compliance officers, is that what you're talking?
No, safety.
Safety, well,
Police.
so we have, we have several layers of safety, including police and our cruisers. Then we have the police on the motorcycle, the enduros they call them.
Okay.
And then we also have some foot traffic as well for our police officers. So as we know, the central police substation or headquarters is right in the heart of downtown.
Yes, sir.
And that's a big deterrent as well, so.
Do we increase it during summer when that's our peak season?
Yes, the chief constantly and his command staff adjust patrol across the city, including downtown, depending on the time of year. Now we're back into longer daylight hours, so there's adjustments made because of that. Any type of a major event downtown, weekend traffic increases police presence. Soon, I'm going to bring to City Council an adjustment to the budget to add more park security. We talked about that a couple weeks ago.
Yes, sir, we did.
Yes, and so we're going to double the amount of security we have today. We only have 7, we have, I think, 6 park security personnel. We're going to add 7 more but we're going to keep them just in the bayfront parks, including Cole Park and the seawall. So that's coming to council in May. The staff's done a good job in doing some comparative analysis and putting together schedules. So we're looking forward to bringing that. We know there was an altercation that happened at Cole Park recently,
Correct.
which is totally unacceptable, and we look forward to bringing that to you.
Okay,
Mhm.
very good.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
If I might add to the city
Go ahead.
manager's comments, the council also provides the DMD an additional $100,000 a year for an off-duty police patrol program. So we'll utilize that to augment staff. The Delta District is very active, and we can't always pull off officers from higher level crimes for things like aggressive panhandling. So through that off-duty police patrol program, we do have officers on the bike units and in the ATVs. They're able to go through the district. They augment like farmers market on Wednesdays. That's one of the events that we have that additional layer of security for, just in order to increase those feelings of safety.
Very good. Any other questions, board? Mr. Pusley?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. Alyssa, please share the picture of the building you and I discussed. It's abandoned downtown that it's sort of leaning like this, looks like it's abandoned, and it's just a really ugly site, so.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll get it. I'll send it to you. Yeah. Okay. Next. Oh, you know what? I can control the slides here. Okay. So finding what the how the non-users feel about downtown. Again, this was only 13% of respondents. When asked why they didn't come downtown, overwhelmingly it was because of COVID-19 at 73%. But the other items that really rated were traffic congestion, homeless or panhandlers, unfamiliar with what there is to do in shopping or dining downtown. Parking is expensive, it's too far. So those were some of the reasons that people had for not coming downtown. But again, this is only 13% comparatively to our community. So that was the benchmarks. We'll move on and talk about programs. The DMD has tested programs before launching them to see how our community feels about them. So we've just kind of highlighted some of the initiatives that we have launched based on the positive result from the survey. You can see if something is scoring in the high 80s, we have made that a priority. So website, mobile app, the off-duty police patrol program, cleaning ambassadors, and then that outdoor dining. So we utilize this survey to really test programs again with our market before launching them. So here are the programs that we have tested for 2021. We once again put the seawall on as an item that we were inquiring about. Very excited. I think our whole downtown district is just super excited about the $1 million that are going to be utilized to make those kind of capital maintenance improvements to the seawall, as well as the funding I think that the Type A board just decided to move forward with related to the TIRZ. You could see 88% of users wanted to see an improvement to the maintenance and operation of the seawall, and that was across workers and leisure visitors. So pretty consistent, right? That everyone's in agreement and wanting to see that seawall improve. Wayfinding program rated the next highest, 81% wanted to see that. Higher among downtown workers, people who utilize downtown. The next item we tested was increased trees and landscaping. 80% are in support of that. Again, higher among those who frequent downtown. A downtown circuit trolley, barely under that 80%, followed by ferry service, and then open container ordinance. So we'll be pursuing these initiatives in the order of the desire to see them. Next slide. Oh, I can do the next slide. And I was actually very happy to learn this through our survey related to downtown living and preferences. We have made significant progress in making downtown a realistic option for people to live. You can see from all surveyed in 2015, only 11% said that they would likely consider living downtown. We have now taken that up to 39%. When we asked millennials, only 15% said that they would likely consider living downtown. We are now up to 56%. And when we asked downtown users, In 2015, only 7% so that they would likely consider living downtown, and we are now up to 45%. So I think that you can see that our efforts have really been fruitful in improving perceptions of downtown and its livability. We thought this was also an interesting tidbit. 80% of the downtown users likely to live downtown would prefer a single family unit, right? Now that doesn't mean that land costs can accommodate the development of that, but I think that's an interesting preference point to have. And you can see what they'd be willing to pay for that single family unit has increased significantly. Again, not that this product is developable, but it's interesting to learn that people would be interested in living in a $250,000 home in the downtown area. So we think that that's some helpful information. Next slide. So our highlights, again, 60% believe that the downtown area is clean. Downtown users visit more than double the national average. Downtown interest in living downtown has increased significantly. 67% believe that there are family-friendly activities, but they desire more. And 79% of residents believe that downtown businesses are taking appropriate precautions during the pandemic. So we thought that that was a great statistic as well. Next, okay. So next steps, we'll continue to utilize our social media channels to promote dining, entertainment, and family-friendly options. Improving seawall cleanliness has I think, we've been making some strides there, so thank you to the council and the city for really taking the lead on that. We'll be working again over the summer to develop a strategy for wayfinding signage, looking to program some funding for additional trees and landscaping through FY22 TIRZ budget, so that will be part of what we submit here in the coming months. And then once we get those things done, it really is time for us to have conversations about transit in the downtown area related to a trolley or a ferry, and get us all on the same page to figure out what we're going to do there. Because again, our downtown is so distended, just like the rest of the city, but it makes it difficult for people to get from, say, Bay Vista Point to a game at Whataburger Field. If you live in a downtown, you'd like to be able to do those without driving. Yes, ma'am, exactly, and connect.
Point.
So, happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Mr. Pusley?
Yeah, just two quick things. Peter, do we have, is Water Street on the plan for reconstruction?
Is it, Alyssa's saying yes?
Yes.
I have, yes?
At-
You're saying yes?
At the end of the summer.
It's a 5-year plan, so I don't have all the streets memorized, but at the end of the summer, we're gonna?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
End of the summer? Okay. 'Cause it desperately needs it.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
yeah.
And then Alyssa, when did we change the parking meters? I got asked about this from a very important person, my wife.
Norma, I was like,
Yes.
this is what?
I knew he meant.
Very, very influential person in my life. When did we change to extend the parking meters to 6 p.m. in the evening?
They have always been till 6 p.m.
They
in
have?
the evening. Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
So we may have just increased enforcement. Did she get a ticket?
Yeah, she wasn't aware of that.
That's
So-
that's a lot of people's first introduction to our parking requirements.
Right, Councilman Pusley, Alyssa and I both know, and it's on our list of things to address, the parking system citywide. There's meters downtown, there's some at North Beach. But right now it's run out of the police department. That's probably not the best place for the parking meter maintenance
It's a
to
little
be. So-
whacked out.
And there's credit card payment systems, there's coin-operated ones still, so it's really a hodgepodge of,
Right.
so it's something that's on the list to address. We're going to announce this week a realignment in our neighborhood services, and then parking's one of the last ones that I need to adjust out of the police department.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great,
Yes, sir.
wonderful, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Michael. Could I ask a question? We don't have a
Go
button
ahead, sir.
back here.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's going to be real quick, and I don't think that this falls on Alyssa, but hopefully she can help us answer this. What is taking so long with the trolley downtown? We've been asking for this in a whole bunch of different solutions for 6 years at least.
What do you think, Peter? Do you think you can answer that one?
That's a tough one.
That is a
Yeah.
tough
It's hard for Peter
Yeah.
too, because he's fairly new considering that topic.
Yeah.
Well, I think, sir, we just haven't. I mean, there's so many things that we need to do downtown. Really making sure that we have the capacity to accomplish them has been the challenge. And so hopefully, the new planner that we hire will really be looking at design, parking, and honestly, transportation. I mean, even Waco is able to figure out how to do a trolley around their silos. So I feel like this isn't an insurmountable task. We just haven't had the focus and had it as a priority. Again, because there's been so many other more pressing priorities. But I think as we accomplish those, then the trolley becomes basically the next problem for us to solve collaboratively. So that is my answer.
Thank you for your answer. And I know that I continually get reminded that this bridge isn't going to be fixed further and further every time it gets brought up. But when the bridge is finally finished, do we have plans for the trolleys and the transportation to go to North Beach and any other areas of the city and back to downtown?
I do know, I mean, we've looked at the RTA service plans, and I know that there currently is a route that goes to North Beach from the downtown area. I think the challenge is that that exists, and I believe it will continue to exist. But what we're really missing is the movement within the downtown area in a real circuit system, much like New Orleans. New Orleans has a really great public transportation system in their urban areas. So yes, I believe North Beach will continue to be connected by vehicle.
Once the bridge is done, I know that it's currently done.
Yes,
but
sir.
they're talking about all sorts of potential adding of, helping our tourism industry through some of the trolleys or the new buses, or even redoing some of the old trolley buses. I don't know how to explain it, but the ones that look like they're significantly different looking than the other buses.
The ones that look like carriages, yes.
Yes, those. I think there's even been discussion on having some Corpus Christi information continuing to be cycled through their speaker systems, highlighting things as you pass them throughout the city with GPS markers and stuff like that. I know this is RTA, but I figured since you're DMD, you may have some information on it.
Yes, sir. I think that we just haven't really gotten there yet. And so we'll have that additional capacity on board, and we can start making some strategic moves and coming up with a plan to engage in a conversation once we have that capacity.
Yeah, and I think the conversation on the ferry, it's happening now. We're talking, I've mentioned to Peter about some situations there, and also our port on the ferry going straight across to the aquarium. So, I mean, there's a lot of things coming up. It's just going to take some time and definitely some funding, but there's some areas that we have to look at. Jim, you had a question? Yep.
Is that our choice to only have that many, or what? This seems like a very small sample size for the breadth of the issues we're talking about here.
Yes, sir. So I think just kind of going back to my grad program statistic classes, a 1% sample size is standard for something like this. So we can go back and look at, now that our population has increased. Realistically, we budget this line item, and that's how many surveys it buys us. So we could potentially look at increasing the scope of the survey moving forward if we want to try to get a little bit more of the audience. Right, yes, sir. So this is significant. I mean, it is significantly more expensive. Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you. Okay, as a former RTA board member with experience on the trolleys and ferries, it is tremendously subsidized by the RTA. So specifically with the ferries, we had a ferry that went from the T-head over to docked near the aquarium. It cost us over $20 per person per trip. The fare to get over there was like $250. So it is tremendously subsidized, and it is not necessarily something that is would make financial sense. So even on if being privatized, you wouldn't necessarily have a good scenario where that would make sense. You just didn't have the kind of ridership. Plus, anytime you had rough seas or anything like that, it shut down. It just wasn't practical. Now on the trolleys, again, the whole thing is ridership and cost associated with being subsidized. Right now, the RTA by its fares is 95% subsidized by taxpayers. And those routes were even, or probably some of the worst utilized routes within the system. There was some really good routes, like route number 27 that went up and down Leopard all the way to Robstown and was, well utilized. Routes like that, the ones that went to the south side or the ones that were running or just going circles around downtown were not utilized as much. So the idea here is nice, and we'd like to see something like that, but there's just not enough ridership to justify the cost of subsidizing it. So where's that subsidy going to come from? Is it going to come from the RTA, or are you looking to subsidize some of that as well?
Yes, sir. I mean, I think that's all part of the strategic planning that we'll have to engage in as a group in order to kind of identify what those issues were and figure out how to solve them. I will say that there is more activity downtown than there has been in my memory. So I think that as we continue to add residents, people who are wanting to get from place to place, continue to increase tourism, we'll have more of that population, hopefully.
Well,
to create
I
that
know as
ridership.
you did the art walk, there was occasionally like a golf cart kind of trolley type
Yes, sir.
thing. I would assume that would be more practical, simply because the cost for a full-size bus and all the regulations associated with it become somewhat cumbersome, especially if you have something specialized that is a bus that looks like a trolley that adds significant cost to that vehicle. Now, I don't want to put a downer on this, but I want to be practical in terms of how this on the cost and what that really means. I mean, I don't think we need to be subsidizing just to have something look nice. And, so if it can be done practically, where it's not, we're not subsidizing by hundreds of thousands of dollars every year.
Yes, sir. And I think with what we've done with the TIRZ, that's definitely become our style. So we'll look at an opportunity. We'll look at that and keep that as a priority, so that we're being good stewards of taxpayer
I just don't want
dollars.
to put unrealistic expectations on the RTA to do something that is not, that is a significant expense to them.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Okay.
we have
Thank you.
total confidence. We'll figure something out. I'm sure we will. The good thing about it is that we need to increase the foot traffic in the downtown area. When we do that, things happen for us, and that's the best part. We have total confidence in you and your team working with the city employees, city staff, and all that. But we'll get there. It's a great dream vision, but it's going to take some time, and we're going in the right direction with the team that you've got, Alyssa, downtown. Looking forward to the new employee that we're getting, the planner, shortly, hopefully within I think you said a month or something like that?
The 3rd. He'll start on the 3rd.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that, but you keep doing what you're doing because you're doing a great job for the
Thank you, sir.
downtown. This is the most I've ever seen in the downtown come alive since I was a child.
thank
Okay, so we're going in the right direction. We just need to make sure we support, each other, and that's the key. We work together as a team. Mr. Molina.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have to respond to some of the comments, if that's all right.
Hang on, Mike.
Hold on, let's
Yeah,
Mr.
when
Molina,
there's an opportunity.
Mr. Molina has the floor, okay?
Alyssa, years back, the CVB came to us, to the council, with a proposal for wayfinding, which, if I remember right, it came out to about $250,000.
Yes.
And I hope that when we get to that point, when you and your team get to that point, that you can come back with something that is a lot more palatable to the council. And then on going back to the either trolley system, I know at one point there was a private organization that was running shuttles downtown. Are they still operating?
Yes, sir. So there have been 2 businesses that have run things in downtown. One is Enjoy Corpus Christi Tours, and they schedule and hold tours, historic tours, ghost tours throughout the downtown area. So yes, they are in operation. They have I don't know the capacity of it. They have a large van. that they utilize. And we had actually utilized that whenever the Art Walk trolley basically became non-functional. We actually would contract with them on Art Walk nights to move people through the
Yeah.
downtown area. There is another entity, it's called HOP. It's basically an open-ended, like a giant, nice golf cart. So he often would, on a Friday or Saturday night, set up an operation. But those have been basically the two micro transit options in our downtown area, and not necessarily from a scheduling standpoint super consistent. So if I'm just wanting to do this thing, I know I can catch this at this time. It's more of a contract-based type of activity.
Yeah, I think, I guess we'll, when we get to that point, we'll talk more about it, but going back to Councilman Hernandez's point, I think those might be a little bit more practical for our what we're trying to do downtown and what we're trying to accomplish those, but that's just my opinion. But I appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Hunter. Mr. Hunter?
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As much as I do appreciate Councilman or Board Member Hernandez's comments, and we do need to be very watchful of the taxpayer dollars, I think Councilman Hernandez was on that board before I was born. So, and every year since the last 6 years, we have increased our tourism involvement downtown. I'm not looking for a trolley to support necessarily locals, but more to enhance the tourism, the downtown involvement.
That's right.
And that had been our approach in the past by looking at this. I do understand that the RTA is a different entity, but we have already discussed this plenty of times, agreed on so many things, but it has never been implemented. And we've also come up with financial solutions that will not burden us. We have one of the best CVB directors that we have ever had. I highly suggest the RTA and some city staff get with him because he is great, find some sort of solution for these trolleys and ferries, because I think that he could help us solve the issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Pusley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree a little bit with Mr. Hunter. The RTA used to operate the water taxi, and it seemed to be very popular, but it obviously was not something that was ever going to make any money. It was a service that was provided, and I know when they took it away, there were lots of complaints about that. And so I agree with Councilman Hunter. We need to get our group, Alyssa, you need to get your group and the DMD and whoever and sort of have some discussions with RTA and whoever else, because and we need to encourage them that when we have a transportation issue, they don't necessarily need to send a 52-passenger bus to solve the problem.
Right.
I think that therein lies the issue. I mean, you can get smaller buses, you can get vans, you can get golf carts. I mean, the RTA could solve that issue by looking at a smaller footprint of what they're trying to do. And I think the water taxi thing is really important. We really need to look at that again and see if we can figure out a way to make that work, because access to the aquarium from downtown, access to North Beach, all those areas is going to be really important in the future. I do want to make one comment about the scooters. I see them everywhere, and I think whatever company that is, and I don't know who it is, they need to do a better job of policing their scooters. They're scattered everywhere on the street. I mean, people just leave them wherever. And I saw a lady fall over one the other day downtown in front of Water Street Oyster Bar because she turned around and was talking to somebody, and there was a scooter laying down on the sidewalk, and she didn't see it and turned around, walked, and fell down over the thing. So it's a little bit dangerous.
Yeah, so we are in the process of proposing changes to the fee structure and the kind of guidelines that we're going to bring forward. We'll be bringing forward that to council to discuss. Part of that is creating corral areas where those scooters need to be left. We are working with our current providers to work through how that would work. What does the logistics of that look like? Are we able to get those scooters where they won't actually stop charging the rider until they're put into a certain geo-fenced area? We are looking at reducing, limiting speed downtown, limiting the number of scooters that we're going to allow on, from Water's Edge down to ABC. So we're in the process of doing that. We've worked with some other cities to see what their regulations are. And then we will be bringing that forward to council to include in that licensing agreement that we offer up. In addition to that, we will be going out for basically like an RFQ to see what other companies, what they have to offer, how they operate, and then awarding that to possibly 3 or 4 different companies with a limitation on the number of scooters.
Yeah, the one that really caught my ear was, continuing to charge them until they put them up in a proper place. I like that idea.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
good idea.
So putting some of the responsibility back on the rider
Yeah.
in addition to the company, so.
Very good, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, now, Mr. Chairman, may I add something?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Not Ben Molina. Here, I typically, when, I love Councilman Pusley. And believe it or not, I love Councilman Hernandez too. But sometimes I stay here sometimes quiet because you just hear the rhetoric continue. So that's one reason why sometimes I don't interject. And my thing though is that on the RTA, I obviously served there for 8 years. I like to say with distinction, and it was chairman for 2. With regard to either a water taxi or a ferry, I have to agree with Councilman Hernandez. I'm not trying to bring it down, but my comment is that it has to operate like any other service. It has to be timely. It has to have a schedule. It has to be maintained properly. And if the private sector can't do it, then there's a reason behind that. And it's just because the community takes the RTA for granted. In the communities where they have those type of functions, where they have downtown trolleys, where they have harbor ferries, or in larger communities, San Francisco, New York, Seattle, Denver, those are communities that the fare that they charge or the sales tax contribution that they have are in excess of a 3/4 cent. In some cases, it's over a full cent. So here at 1/2 cent, we cover an 800 square mile radius. Just to give you comparison, in Dallas, Dallas County is a 700 square mile radius. So it's true that it's transportation, but it's a different community, and it's just a little short-sighted for us to believe, hey, they're moving people, then the RTA needs to step up. I like where we're all going, but we need to open up that dialogue. I'll give a good example. In San Antonio, the RTA contributes, what is it, Peter, $2.5 million for us for street subsidy?
The city, you're talking about the city, for the street maintenance portion of it?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a significant investment that they make. They pay the city to
Exactly.
repave streets.
And then once again, in comparison, the city of San Antonio contributes to the RTA. So just kind of keep those in mind when we look at that perspective. It's a really, really complex issue. And I just want to, I appreciate the enthusiasm, and I'm a big downtown person, but we just need to make sure we don't have this adversarial type of deal that we have a sense of entitlement about they've got to produce. So with that, I'll go back into my hole back here, and I've said my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
So,
Once again,
Mr.
all
Chairman,
boils down to-
Councilman Barrett was saying that Councilman Hernandez was right. Just want to put that out there.
Well,
Very true, sir. Very true.
You definitely, everybody's right, to be quite honest with you. It needs to be brought back to the table. And the main point here is increased traffic, foot traffic to downtown. You increase it, that means when you go downtown, bring all your family, not just you, bring everybody. We have to increase it to be able to get some of these things that we want done in the downtown area. It's all about people. You know, Mr. Barrera, you stated all these great cities, right? We're half the size of all those great cities. So we have to grow first. So we have to get the people here first. Steps and steps. I've noticed that you put it on the very bottom of our wish
yes,
list.
sir. Last
I
one.
understand that, but it caught everybody's attention, okay? There's a lot of other things that have to go in between that. Mayor?
Thank you. So a couple of things. The trees and landscaping, I'm more on the tree side here. Is there, do you guys, I don't even know if you have the capacity to do that, but to find grants for this to look, is that something? I know you mentioned, I guess, funding for it.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I think the kind of critical path for this would be for us to program TIRZ 3 funding for next fiscal year. For us to kind of check, get that underway and check it off. Something we could apply for a grant for, and we are actually in the conversations with, is wayfinding. So I don't know, off the top of my head, a source for grants for tree planting.
Right.
So for us, again, the critical path, the shortest distance between 2 points would be just trying to budget
Include
that
it.
for this board.
Right. Okay, not a problem. And that could be something we possibly partner with the city. Hopefully, we get a grant writer in the budget this year.
Got it.
And then that person will be able to maybe combine trees for us and trees for you. But that grant writer's critical, and I think that will help. That could help you. Anyway, that said, that's just a side note. Just to let y'all know, I do have a so Alyssa and I meet very often. And I already do have a meeting scheduled with RTA to talk just about this, which is the trolley. And so all the things that mentioned here are very good points, and those are the things that will move forward once we can advance those discussions on it. But just so you guys know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pusley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I just want to respond to Councilman comments about the RTA. It was not my intent to say that the RTA needs to throw money away and waste it and do things. If you'll go back and check my history on the Commissioner's Court, I was a very staunch supporter of the RTA running their operation as efficiently as possible. But what my intent of my comments were, Alyssa, is that your group and the downtown management district and the mayor and the RTA can get together and try to figure out a best practices method where they can do this. And I'm 110% private, entrepreneur guy. So, but we also have to remember that government makes it very difficult for small entrepreneurs to operate in areas like this. So maybe we need to look at that. But the rules and regulations and the insurance requirements and all of that stuff goes into making it somewhat difficult. So many times we end up with governmental entities being the only ones that can afford to do it. So we just need to look at the overall issue, but I think the ability to move people around, we want walkability, but the ability to move people around between 3 avenues, which is downtown and the aquarium, and I'm a board member on the aquarium, and I'm very, concerned about them being able to share in it, because when the new Harbor Bridge goes up, it may not be as easy for people to get to the aquarium as it was before. So we need to look at all those issues. So I don't mean to insinuate that I want the RTA to operate at a loss, but they also don't need to send a 52-passenger bus when we need a van. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pusley. Any other questions? Alyssa?
Well, thank you, board members. I think that was some healthy discussion, and we'll be moving forward with these next steps.
Thank you so much to you and your group from the downtown. Keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing the right thing, and it's for the citizens of Corpus Christi, and we greatly appreciate that. And I'm glad to see that you're going to get a new addition to your group downtown. Look forward to meeting with that individual and see what his vision is when he comes into Corpus Christi and takes a
Absolutely.
look at it.
Yes, sir.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other business. This meeting's adjourned.